6 years later, and the Kaiju Master has returned. The Giant Behemoth. From 1959, this adventurous, scientific, and destructive monster movie explodes onto your TV screen. The plot: after years of nuclear tests, they have finally come to bite us in the butt. Finally, as a beast is attacking an English countryside, America and Japan have had their fill. Now Britain will have a bite. It is up to 2 scientists to stop this beast from destroying the land it stomps on. This is nothing new, however, I do like some things about this film over others of its kind. First off, the settings are beautiful. The English countryside kind of gives it a pulpy horror novel feel without being gruesome. The city isn't as stunning, but it works for the climax. On the ocean, it felt like Jaws before Jaws, what with them hunting the creature on the boat. The film was directed by Douglas Hickox, as well as Eugene Leray, who directed The Amazing Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and the cheesy Gorgo. He can be considered the king of kaiju if you don't count King Kong, but I'm still on the fence about that. Back to this movie though, the acting is spot on from everyone. Steve Carney's played by Gene Evans, Professor James Bickford, played by Andre Morell, and Dr. Samson, played by Jack McGowan, who also played in The Exorcist as a director. They all do splendid jobs. My favorite would probably have to be Dr. Samson. Sure, the other two are great, but McGowan brings life and charisma to the cast of characters, most of which were just routinely acting casual for some parts. He was the oddball in the yarn basket. The film can be a bit forgettable at times, but it doesn't detract from the viewing experience. What is interesting about this movie is that there is no real female lead. There's a side character that's female and starts out the story. However, after a short while, she disappears from the film entirely. I love that it's here to tell a monster story and not a love story. Kind of ahead of its time in that regard. Other aspects that were ahead of its time are the gore, the effects. There are some burn marks from radiation poisoning. Not much else though. It isn't ahead of its time. It isn't ahead of the curve in terms of bloodshed, rather a darker reason. At least 2 kids die in this movie, and one of them goes rather horridly, and the other can be up for speculation. The first kid is a young teen who succumbs to a blast of radiation and electricity. For some reason, the effects department turned the characters into stone in post. The second kid, a child, is attacked in a group on a boat. The last we see in that scene is her doll floating on the surface. It's quite shocking, to say the least. I know Godzilla wasn't afraid to kill kids in the first movie, but the bold and subtle ways this movie does it is very unsettling. Willis O'Brien apparently worked on this film, but was uncredited. It's probably because the stop animation didn't turn out that great. I don't know, the movements just seem all wrong. Motion picture soundtrack, it's basically just typical 50s music, but there's definitely an ominous presence about it. Sound design for this movie isn't that great. In fact, several roars for the monster were lifted straight out of King Kong, along with Fay Wray's scream. This is a cheap yet charming film. While it is an underwhelming follow-up to The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and director only, there is still some great times to be had with this one. It puts class in this B-movie genre. Overall, I give The Giant Behemoth a 2.5 out of 5. Lion Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Entertainment. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below, leave comments, and subscribe.